She had 8 minutes to reach the exam that would change her life. The stranger on the sidewalk had maybe 3 minutes left to live. In that moment, Leah Harris made a choice that would cost her everything and give her back something she never knew existed. This is the true story of how a shy nursing student's single act of compassion on a cold October evening opened a door to a world of shadow and magic and proved that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply refuse to look away. Philadelphia, October 16th, 6:52 p.m. Leah Harris was running like her life depended on it, because it did. Nursing textbook pressed to her chest, pale blue scrubs damp with sweat, breath coming in clouds. 9 blocks to campus. 8 minutes to save her future. Miss the exam by even 1 minute, and the doors would lock. Her scholarship would disappear. 3 years of sacrifice would mean nothing. This quiet girl with no family and no safety net had given everything to get here. 20 hours a week cleaning dorms while classmates partied. 3 outfits rotated endlessly. Meals skipped to buy textbooks. Studying past midnight, awake before dawn. Never complaining. Never asking for help. Never believing she deserved it. Just 8 minutes from proving she belonged. Then she saw the woman. Collapsed beside a bench in the fog, designer coat soaked with blood, hand clutching her head. The other hand stretched out, reaching for help that wasn't coming. And this is what broke Leah's heart. People kept walking. A man in a business suit glanced over, checked the time, hurried past. A woman with groceries crossed to the other side of the street. A jogger ran by, earbuds in, eyes forward. Nobody stopped. The woman's lips were gray. Her breathing was shallow, desperate. Leah's phone buzzed. 7 minutes. For just a moment, she was 15 again, sitting beside her mother's hospital bed, watching life slip away while help came too late. The ambulance that night had taken 40 minutes. 40 minutes that became forever. The woman whispered, "Please don't leave me." Leah looked at her phone, at the exam, at everything she'd worked for, then at the woman dying while the world walked past. Her hands were shaking when she dropped to her knees, but the instant her fingers found the woman's pulse, something shifted. The fear fell away. Training rose up. Airway clear, bleeding controlled, pulse weak but steady. Her textbook tumbled into a puddle, pages soaking. She didn't even notice. The air around her grew strange, cold and electric, like a storm about to break. In the fog, something moved. Watching. She didn't know the woman was Margaret Ward, whose name graced hospital wings across the city. Didn't know she'd just intervened in something far older than medicine. Didn't know this one choice, this moment of refusing to walk past suffering, would unravel a conspiracy, awaken a dormant power, and draw the attention of a king who ruled in shadows. But first, she had to lose everything she'd worked for. The ambulance arrived 11 minutes later. By then, her exam had started. The doors had locked. Her future had slipped away like water through her fingers. And somewhere in the darkening streets, something ancient turned its gaze toward her and smiled. She had no idea her real life was just beginning. The morning came too bright, too ordinary for the end of a life. Leah sat across from Dean Linda Vaughn in an office that smelled like leather and old money. Financial aid coordinator Ms. Chen sat beside Linda, her expression carefully neutral, the look of someone who delivered bad news so many times it no longer registered as tragedy. "Your scholarship has been revoked, Miss Harris." Linda's voice was crisp, administrative. She slid a single sheet of paper across the mahogany desk, effective immediately. The words hit like physical blows. Leah's hands trembled as she picked up the letter. Official university letterhead. Her name was misspelled. Leah Harris. They couldn't even get that right. But I can appeal, right? I can retake the exam. I can explain what happened. There is no appeal process for missed examinations. Linda folded her hands, rings glinting. The policy is clearly stated in your enrollment agreement. A woman was dying, so you've said. Linda's expression never changed. Unfortunately, we have no documentation of this alleged emergency. No police report. No witness statements. Just your word against university policy. Ms. Chen cleared her throat softly. There's also the matter of academic probation. Missing a final without approved documentation constitutes. I know what it constitutes. Leia's voice cracked. She hated how small she sounded. How desperate. Please. I've worked 3 years for this. I have loans. I have nowhere to go. If I drop out now, I'll spend the next decade paying back money for a degree I'll never finish. Linda stood, smoothing her skirt. Then I suggest you make better choices in the future. This meeting is concluded. Leia walked out into hallways that suddenly felt hostile. Students moved past her in clusters, laughing, complaining about midterms and meal plans, problems that belong to people with futures. She saw Jenna and Marcus near the vending machines. Her study group, or what used to be her study group. Jenna caught her eye, then quickly looked away, whispering something to Marcus. He glanced over, face uncomfortable, and they both turned down a different corridor. The message was clear. Don't come near us. Whatever you've got, we don't want to catch it. By noon, 3 people had unfriended her on social media. By 1, her group chat had gone silent. By 2, she understood. She was the girl who'd thrown away her future for a stranger. And in a program where one wrong move could derail everything, no one wanted to be associated with that kind of reckless compassion. The studio apartment was exactly as she'd left it. Cramped. Dim, smelling faintly of the Chinese restaurant downstairs. A twin mattress on the floor, textbooks stacked like makeshift furniture, walls so thin she could hear her neighbor's television through the plaster. Leia sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing yesterday's blood-stained scrubs. She hadn't had the energy to change, hadn't had the energy to do anything but stare at the eviction notice already tucked under her door. 2 months late on rent, and now no scholarship check coming to bridge the gap. Was I stupid? The question circled her mind like a vulture. Was saving her worth this? She didn't even know the woman's name. Didn't know if she'd survived the night, if the ambulance made it in time, if any of it had mattered. Maybe she'd destroyed her life for nothing. Maybe the woman had died anyway, and Leia had just made the world's most expensive, meaningless gesture. Her phone buzzed. A text from the university bursar's office. Outstanding balance, $43,847. Payment due within 30 days. She lay back on the mattress and stared at water stains on the ceiling until they blurred. 12 miles away, in a private suite at Pennsylvania Hospital, Margaret Ward opened her eyes. The room was all shadow and silk. Heavy curtains blocked the afternoon sun. Monitors beeped softly, but the medical equipment seemed almost decorative. Nothing was hooked up to her anymore. The head wound that should have killed her was reduced to a thin pink line across her temple. The girl? Margaret's voice was rough, barely a whisper. Where is the girl with gentle hands? Beside her bed, a figure stirred. Valdrin Arthelian rose from the chair like smoke taking form, tall, impossibly elegant, dressed in a dark coat that belonged to another century. His face was beautiful in the way broken glass is beautiful, sharp, dangerous, arresting. And his eyes burned faint red in the dim light. You're awake. His voice carried the weight of centuries. That's unexpected. Margaret's fingers found his hand. Her skin looked paper-thin against his marble pallor. She saved me. That mortal girl. I felt her hands, Valdrin. So gentle, so certain. Her eyes, still clouded with medication, searched his face. Where is she? Valdrin's jaw tightened. You should not have survived that wound, Margaret. The blade was iron, laced with rowan ash. It was meant to sever your bond to me, to kill you beyond my reach. He moved to the window, pulling the curtain back just enough to look out at the dying light. A mortal interfered with a death that was already written. She touched you. She touched my magic. And she felt nothing, sensed nothing. His voice held something between wonder and anger. She shouldn't exist. You have to find her. Margaret struggled to sit up. She saved my life, and she doesn't even know what she disrupted. If the council learns a mortal rewrote fate, I know. Valdrin's reflection in the glass looked carved from ice. They'll want her eliminated. Or worse, they'll want to use her, then protect her. He turned, red eyes blazing. She's mortal, Margaret. She doesn't belong in our world. The kindest thing would be to let her forget this ever happened. She won't forget. Margaret's voice was soft but certain. I saw her face, Valdrin. She chose me over her entire future. That kind of heart doesn't forget. She paused. And you're already curious. I can tell. Valdrin said nothing, but his silence was not enough. Find her, Margaret whispered, exhaustion pulling her back under. Before someone else does. Night fell over Philadelphia like a shroud. Leia lay in her darkened apartment, tears drying salt tracks on her face. She'd cried for an hour, ugly, shoulder-shaking sobs that left her hollow. Now she just felt numb. No one will ever help me the way I helped that stranger, she thought. That's not how the world works. She closed her eyes, pulling the threadbare blanket up to her chin. Outside her window, on the rusted fire escape, shadows gathered thicker than they should. The temperature dropped 10 degrees in an instant. Frost formed on the glass in delicate, impossible patterns. And in the darkness, a tall silhouette appeared, standing perfectly still, watching the girl who'd rewritten fate without knowing it, the girl who'd touched something she shouldn't have been able to touch. Valdrin Arthelian tilted his head, studying the sleeping mortal through the window. Her face was streaked with tears. Her hands were still faintly stained with Margaret's blood. And in the threads of fate that only he could see, light pulsed around her like a heartbeat. Impossible. He should leave. Walk away. Let the mortal world swallow her back up and forget this ever happened. But he didn't move. And when Leia's breathing finally evened into sleep, the Vampire King remained on her fire escape, standing guard over the girl who'd just destroyed his carefully ordered world with a single act of mercy. The knocking came at midnight. 3 sharp raps that pulled Leia from shallow sleep. She sat up, disoriented, heart hammering. The digital clock on her phone glowed exactly at 12 o'clock exactly. The knocking came again, precise, patient, wrong. No one knocked at midnight. Not in this neighborhood. Not at this hour. She crept to the door, bare feet silent on cold linoleum, pressed her eye to the peephole. The hallway was empty. Dim fluorescent light, peeling wallpaper. No one there. Hello. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. Silence. Maybe she'd imagined it. Stress, hallucination. Grief manifesting as phantom sounds. She'd read about that in her psych course. Trauma could do strange things to perception. She turned the deadbolt anyway, cracked the door open just enough to confirm the empty hallway. And that's when the air changed. The temperature dropped so fast her breath came out in a white cloud. The hallway lights flickered once, twice, then dimmed to almost nothing. And suddenly, impossibly, he was simply there, inside her apartment, as if he'd always been standing in her living room, waiting. Leia stumbled backward, hand flying to her mouth to trap the scream. He was tall, well over 6 feet, draped in a long black coat that seemed to absorb light. The collar was high and embroidered with silver thread in patterns that hurt to look at directly. His face was impossibly beautiful and completely wrong, too pale, too perfect, too still, like a sculpture of a man rather than a man himself. And his eyes. They glowed faint red in the darkness, catching the dim light like an animal's. You. Leia's back hit the wall. How did you? The door was locked. His voice was deep, accent unplaceable, old. Yes. Get out. She groped for something, anything. Her hand closed around a textbook. Get out or I'll scream. You won't. He didn't move, but somehow the space between them felt smaller. You're frightened, but you're not stupid. You know screaming won't help. He was right. Her neighbors wouldn't come. They never did. What do you want? She held the textbook like a weapon, knowing how absurd it was. I don't have money. I don't have anything worth stealing. I'm not here to rob you, Miss Harris. He tilted his head slightly, studying her. I'm here because you saved someone bound to me. Someone who should have died on those cobblestones 2 nights ago. Leia's breath caught. The woman. Margaret. Is she alive? Because of you. He took a single step forward. The lights flickered again, and suddenly, he was directly in front of her. Too fast, impossibly fast, the space between them erased in a blink she hadn't seen. Leia pressed herself against the wall, textbook clutched to her chest. What are you? Curious. A faint smile touched his lips, humorless. That's not usually the first question. Then what is? Usually they're too busy screaming. The casual way he said it made ice crawl down her spine. This wasn't a stalker. This wasn't a thief. This was something else entirely, something that didn't follow the rules she understood. I'll ask you once, Miss Harris, and I expect the truth. His red eyes held hers, unblinking. Why did you help her? You knew what it would cost you. 8 minutes from your exam, your scholarship, your future. Why did you stop? Leia's hands were shaking so badly the textbook nearly slipped. But she met his gaze. Because nobody else did. Silence. He stared at her for a long moment, something shifting behind those burning eyes. That's all? No heroic impulse? No savior complex? Just because no one else stopped. She was dying. Leia's voice steadied, anger cutting through fear. What was I supposed to do? Take a picture and keep walking like everyone else? Yes. The word was soft, certain. That's exactly what you should have done. Well, I didn't.
No.
He moved closer, and the air between them began to hum, not sound, but pressure, like standing too close to a power line. You didn't. He reached out slowly, deliberately, as if approaching a wild animal. His fingers closed around her wrist, and the world shattered. A battlefield under a blood-red moon. Bodies everywhere, twisted and broken. Magic crackling through the air like lightning. And him, younger somehow, desperate, kneeling beside a woman with silver hair, her throat torn open, her hand reaching for his face as she died, whispering words Leia couldn't hear. Leia crashed back into her body with a gasp, knees buckling. She would have fallen if he hadn't caught her, one hand steady at her elbow. What? She couldn't breathe. What was that? What did you do to me? But he was staring at her wrist where he'd touched her, eyes wide with something between shock and fear. You saw it. It wasn't a question. You saw my past. I don't know what I saw. Impossible. He released her so fast she stumbled. He was pacing now, predatory, agitated. Mortals can't see the threads. They can't touch fate. It's not possible. I don't understand. By touching Margaret, you touched my world, Miss Harris. He stopped at the window, silhouetted against the city lights. You intervened in something that was meant to happen. A death that was already written. And now, he turned, eyes blazing brighter. Now you've marked yourself. My enemies will sense it. They'll come looking for the mortal who disrupted destiny. Your enemies? Leia's voice was barely a whisper. What are you talking about? Who are you? He studied her for a long moment, then almost gently. I am Valdrin Arthelian, and you, Leia Harris, should have let Margaret die. I would never. I know. Something like regret flickered across his face. That's the problem. He moved to the window, opened it with one hand. Cold October air flooded the room. Stay inside after dark. Don't walk alone. Don't accept invitations from strangers. He swung one leg over the sill. And if you see anything with red eyes, like yours, a pause.
Yes.
Like mine, run. Wait. Leia stepped forward. You can't just break into my apartment, tell me I'm in danger, and leave. But he was already gone, simply gone, dissolving into shadow and mist that scattered on the wind. Leia stood at the open window, staring out at the empty fire escape, heart pounding so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. A stress dream. Had to be. Trauma-induced hallucination. There was no man. No impossible speed. No visions of battlefields and blood moons. She closed the window with shaking hands. Locked it. Backed away. Then she saw it. On the door frame, exactly where his hand had rested when he caught her from falling, a scorch mark. Black. Still smoking faintly. The wood burned in the perfect outline of long, elegant fingers. Leia touched it with one trembling finger. The wood was warm. She looked at her wrist, where he'd gripped her. No mark. No burn. But she could still feel it, the hum of power, the weight of something ancient and vast brushing against her soul. You touched my world, he'd said. Leia sank onto her mattress, pulled her knees to her chest, and tried very hard not to think about the impossible thing that had just stood in her apartment. But when she finally closed her eyes, all she could see were red eyes watching her from the darkness. And the terrible certainty that he would be back. Leia spent the next day trying to convince herself she was losing her mind. It was easier than believing the alternative. She sat in the university library, laptop open, composing and deleting the same email to Professor Kim for the third time. Dear Professor, I missed the final exam because I saved a woman's life, and then a man with red eyes appeared in my apartment and told me I disrupted destiny. Can I please have a makeup exam?
Delete.
Dear Professor, I know I missed the exam. I'm willing to do anything, extra credit, alternative assessment, anything, to make up for it. That one she actually sent, along with 5 others to different professors. For bounced back with auto replies. The 5th got a response within an hour from Dean Linda. Miss Harris, you have been advised that makeup examinations are not available in your case. Further appeals will be considered harassment. Leia closed the laptop harder than necessary. A student at the next table glared at her. By evening, she had 12 rejections, 0 options, and a splitting headache that felt like her skull was cracking open from the inside. She needed air. I needed to walk. Needed to feel like the world still made sense, even if her life didn't. The same narrow street looked different at dusk. Darker. The gaslights cast longer shadows. Fewer people. The businesses that catered to students and tourists had closed early, leaving the cobblestones empty except for fog creeping up from the river. Leia pulled her jacket tighter and walked faster. That's when she felt it, the sensation of being watched. Not paranoia. Not imagination. The same electric wrongness she'd felt the night she saved Margaret. She glanced over her shoulder. 2 men stood beneath a flickering street lamp 20 feet back. They hadn't been there a moment ago. Tall, dressed in dark clothes that seemed to blend with shadow. Their faces were pale, too pale, and their eyes reflected the lamplight like mirrors. Leia's heart kicked into overdrive.
Run.
She turned down a side alley, narrower, darker, lined with dumpsters and fire escapes. Her footsteps echoed off brick walls. Behind her, she heard nothing. No footsteps. No breathing. Somehow that was worse. Little mortal. The voice came from directly behind her. How had they gotten so close so fast? Smooth and mocking. The king's new pet. You smell like him, you know. Leia spun around. They were right there, 5 feet away. One was thin with sharp features and a cruel smile. The other was broader, older-looking, with scars running down one side of his face. We're not here to hurt you, the scarred one said. His smile said otherwise. We just want to talk about your special talent. I don't. Leia backed up until her spine hit the brick. I don't know what you're talking about. No. The thin one tilted his head. The king visited you last night. That makes you interested. That makes you valuable. Elder Corvin has questions, Scarred said, moving closer. You're going to come with us and answer them.
No.
Leia's hand closed around the pepper spray on her keychain. Useless, probably, but it was something. Stay back. They laughed. And then they moved. Faster than her eyes could track. Faster than thought. The thin one was suddenly there. Hand clamping around her wrist like a vice. Cold as ice. Strong as iron. Don't make this stiff. The world exploded. Underground tunnel. Walls dripping with moisture. Fire everywhere. Purple and terrible. Consuming everything it touches. The thin vampire screaming, flesh turning to ash, bones crumbling, eyes burning out of his skull as he claws at the air, and nothing. Leia screamed. The vision slammed into her like a physical blow. She saw it all. His death, every agonizing second of it, felt his terror as if it were her own. The thin vampire recoiled, releasing her wrist, stumbling backward with wide eyes. What did you? He stared at his hand. What did you do? She saw something. Scarred grabbed his companion's shoulder. What did you see, girl? Leia couldn't speak.
Couldn't breathe.
The vision still clung to her like smoke, choking, overwhelming. She sank to her knees on the filthy cobblestones, hands pressed to her temples. Tell us what you saw. Scarred lunged forward, and the air detonated. Purple light erupted between Leia and the vampires, brilliant and terrible. Power crackled through the alley like lightning, raising every hair on her arms. The temperature plummeted. Frost spread across the brick walls in crystalline patterns. Valdrin Arthelion appeared from nothing, standing between Leia and her attackers, his coat billowing in a wind that came from nowhere. His hands were wreathed in purple fire, the same fire from her vision, and his eyes burned red as coals. "Touch her again," he said softly, "and I'll make sure your death takes hours instead of seconds." The thin vampire hissed, fangs bared. Actually bared. Leia could see them now, impossible and real. "She belongs to Corvin now." He called dibs on the fate-sighted. He didn't finish. Valdrin moved his hand in a sharp gesture. Purple fire leaped forward, wrapping around the thin vampire like serpents. He screamed, the same scream from Leia's vision, as the flames consumed him. Flesh to ash, bones to dust. In 3 seconds, there was nothing left but a scorch mark on the cobblestones. The scarred vampire bolted. He made it 10 feet before Valdrin raised his other hand almost casually. The vampire froze mid-stride, body rigid, eyes wide with terror. Valdrin closed his fist. The vampire collapsed into ash, without a sound. Silence. Valdrin turned to Leia, purple fire still flickering around his fingers. "Are you hurt?" She couldn't answer. Couldn't move. She was staring at the places where 2 men had been standing moments ago, now just ash scattering in the wind. "Leia." He knelt in front of her, carefully not touching her. "Are you injured?" "You killed them." Her voice sounded distant, hollow. They're gone. They would have done worse to you." He studied her face. "You saw something when he grabbed you." "A vision." It wasn't a question, but she nodded anyway. "What did you see?" "His death." The words came out broken. "Fire."
Underground.
He was burning.
Screaming.
"I felt." She pressed her hands over her mouth, afraid she'd be sick. "I felt what he felt." Valdrin went very still. "Describe the fire." "Purple. Like yours." "It consumed everything." He tried to run, but she looked up at him, understanding clicking into place with horrible certainty. "That was you. I saw you killing him. I saw his future." Fate sight. Valdrin spoke the words like a curse. "Christ. It's been 300 years since the last one." "The last what?" He stood, running a hand through his dark hair, agitated in a way she hadn't seen before. "We need to move.
Now."
This alley reeks of death, and Corvin will have more hunters nearby. "I'm not going anywhere with you until you explain what's happening." Leia struggled to her feet, legs shaking. "What am I? What did I see?" Valdrin looked at her for a long moment. Then he sighed, an oddly human sound. "You're not going to stop asking, are you?"
"No."
"Fine." He glanced at the mouth of the alley, tense. "But not here. Come." He held out his hand. Leia stared at it. "Last time you touched me, I saw things I didn't want to see. This time I'll be careful." Something in his voice softened. "I give you my word. I will not harm you. But we need to leave before more arrive." Against every instinct, Leia took his hand. The world lurched. Suddenly, they were on a rooftop. She had no memory of moving, of climbing, of anything except the brief sensation of falling upward. The city spread below them, lights twinkling like scattered stars. The wind was cold and clean, nothing like the death-soaked alley. Leia pulled her hand free, stumbling backward. "How?" "I'm fast." He moved to the edge of the roof, looking out over Philadelphia. "And you have questions? Ask them." "What are you?" "Vampire." He said it simply, as if commenting on the weather. "King of the Eastern Dominion. Ruler of everything from Boston to Richmond." He glanced back at her. "And apparently, your reluctant protector." Leia's laugh came out half hysterical. "Vampire. You're a vampire. Does that frighten you?" "Yes." She wrapped her arms around herself. "But I'm too tired to process it right now." "What's the Eastern Dominion? What's Fate's sight? Why did those men want me?" Valdrin turned fully to face her. "My world is organized into territories ruled by vampire elders. I oversee the Eastern Dominion, the most powerful territory in North America. We have laws, politics, and conflicts. Just like your world, but older. Much older." "And Margaret?" "My mortal companion. Humans who serve vampires in exchange for protection, wealth, extended life." His expression darkened. "Margaret was attacked by agents of Elder Corvin, a rival who wants my territory. The blade was designed to kill her beyond my ability to heal. Her death was written in the threads of fate, inevitable, unavoidable. Until I stopped it. Until you stopped it. He studied her intently. By touching her, you rewrote destiny. That should be impossible for mortals. But you're not entirely mortal, are you? You have fate sight, the ability to see possible futures, to perceive the threads that connect cause to consequence. It's incredibly rare. Dangerous. Leia's head spun. So those men wanted to what? Use me? Kill me? Both, probably. Corvin would want to weaponize your ability, force you to show him paths to power, futures where he rules. Valdrin's voice went cold. Or he'd eliminate you to prevent me from having the same advantage. This is insane. Yes. He almost smiled. Welcome to my world. I don't want this. Leia's voice cracked. I just wanted to help someone. I just wanted to finish school and have a normal life. I know. Something like sympathy crossed his face. But normal ended the moment you touched Margaret. The supernatural world knows you exist now. And they won't stop coming. Then what do? Valdrin met her eyes. You let me protect you. Or you die.
No.
Valdrin raised an eyebrow. No. I don't want your protection if it means more people die. Leia's hands were still shaking, but her voice was steady. You killed those men. Vampires. People, and I don't want that blood on my hands. They weren't people. Not for 2 centuries. Valdrin's tone was patient, almost gentle. And they weren't innocent. They've killed dozens, maybe hundreds. They were sent to hurt you. That doesn't make it right. It makes it necessary. He stepped closer. You saw his death in the threads, Leia. That vision wasn't a possibility. It was a certainty. Those who died tonight were already dead the moment they decided to touch you. The words should have been comforting. They weren't. I need to go home. Leia moved toward the roof's edge, then realized she had no idea how to get down. I need to think. Not yet. Valdrin's voice stopped her. There's someone who wants to meet you. Someone you saved. The hospital wing was unlike anything Leia had seen before. They'd arrived through a side entrance, employees only, guarded by men in expensive suits who'd nodded at Valdrin and pretended Leia didn't exist. The elevator descended 3 floors below ground, opening into a corridor lined with mahogany paneling and oil paintings. Candlelight, not fluorescent. Silk wallpaper instead of institutional beige. This is a hospital? Leia whispered. For those who can afford privacy. Valdrin guided her to a door at the end of the hall. And secrecy. He knocked once, then opened it. The suite was warm, softly lit by dozens of candles. Margaret Ward sat propped against silk pillows, looking far better than someone who'd been dying on a sidewalk 3 days ago. The gash on her temple was barely visible, a thin pink line that should have been stitched, should have been severe. When she saw Leia, her face transformed with genuine warmth. You. Margaret reached out both hands. Come here, child. Let me see you. Leia approached hesitantly. Margaret took her hands, studying her face with bright, assessing eyes. You have gentle hands, Margaret said softly. I remember that. Even when I was dying, I remember thinking, these are healing hands.
She squeezed gently.
Thank you for saving my life. I just did what anyone should have done, but no one else did. Margaret glanced at Valdrin. That's what makes her special. That's what makes her dangerous, Valdrin corrected, but his tone was fond. Margaret laughed, rich and warm. Same thing in our world. She patted the bed beside her. Sit.
Talk to me.
Valdrin tells me you're a nursing student. Was. The word tasted bitter. I missed my final because of, she gestured vaguely. Because of you. I lost my scholarship. Then we'll fix it. Margaret said it like it was already decided. I know people on the board. I'll make some calls. I don't want charity. It's not charity. It's payment. Margaret's eyes were sharp despite her warm tone. You saved my life, Leia. That debt doesn't disappear just because you're too proud to accept help. Leia found herself smiling despite everything. You're stubborn. So are you. Margaret smiled back. We're going to get along beautifully. They talked for an hour, about nursing, about Philadelphia, carefully avoiding vampires and fate, and the impossible things that had happened. It felt almost normal, almost human. As they were leaving, Margaret caught Leia's wrist gently. You could be more than just a nurse, With your gift, you could be a bridge between their world and ours. She glanced at Valdrin. God knows we need one. 50 feet below the city, in a chamber carved from bedrock centuries ago, Elder Corvin paced before a council of shadows. He was tall and rail-thin, with silver hair pulled back tight and eyes that burned cold blue instead of red. Ancient, powerful, and furious. He let a mortal rewrite destiny. Corvin's voice echoed off stone walls. Valdrin's companion should be dead. The girl should have been eliminated the moment she interfered. Instead, the king protects her. The girl has fate sight, a voice murmured from the darkness. That makes her valuable. Exactly. Corvin stopped pacing, smile sharp. Valdrin sees her as a curiosity, a puzzle to solve. He doesn't understand what she could do in the right hands. He looked at his assembled council. Bring her to me.
Alive.
I want to see these threads of fate for myself. And if Valdrin interferes? Corvin's smile widened. Then we'll see if the mighty king chooses territory over a mortal girl he's known for 3 days. My guess? He'll let her go. He always chooses duty over sentiment. And if he doesn't, then we'll have found his weakness. Either way, we win. The letter arrived by courier the next morning. Miss Leah Harris, you are hereby summoned to a disciplinary hearing before the Academic Standards Committee on October 22nd at 10 a.m. Failure to appear will result in immediate expulsion and referral of your outstanding balance to collections. Leah read it 3 times, hands trembling. 1 week. She had 1 week to convince a panel of administrators that she deserved a second chance. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. How did you get my number? She answered. I'm a vampire king. I can get anything. Valdrin's voice was dry. You received the hearing notice. How did you? I have eyes everywhere. Don't panic. I can fix this.
How?
I'll attend the hearing. Apply a little pressure. They'll reinstate your scholarship and apologize profusely.
No.
The word came out sharp. Silence on the other end. No. Valdrin repeated. If you steal my future for me, it won't really be mine. Leah stared at the letter. I need to win this honestly. Otherwise, I'm just another person you've compelled. You're being ridiculous. Maybe. But it's my choice.
She paused.
Can you help me another way?
How?
Teach me to control these visions. If I can't touch people without seeing their deaths, I can't be a nurse anyway. Another pause. Then, quietly, meet me tonight. Rooftop where we talked. Midnight. He hung up before she could respond. The training was brutal. Valdrin brought objects. Keys, coins, a watch. Each one touched by someone with a strong future. Leah learned to brush them lightly, to catch just the edge of the vision before pulling back. Most times she failed, drowning in futures she didn't want to see. But slowly, over hours, she got better. Good, Valdrin said as she successfully touched his coat without collapsing. You're learning control. It hurts, Leah admitted. Like my brain is being ripped open. It will get easier. Fate's sight is a muscle. You have to train it. She looked at him, really looked in the moonlight. Why are you helping me? He was quiet for a long moment. Because 3 centuries ago, I failed to protect someone with your gift. She died because I was arrogant enough to think I could control the future. His red eyes met hers. I won't make that mistake twice. 3 blocks away, in the shadows across from Leah's apartment building, a figure watched.
Young, pale.
Eyes reflecting streetlight. He pulled out a phone, typed quickly. The fate-sighted girl walks without guards. Building unsecured. Easy target. The response came immediately. Wait for my signal. Corvin wants her alive. And he wants the king to watch us take her. The vampire smiled and settled into wait. Above, in her tiny apartment, Leah slept, unaware that war was about to break out over a shy nursing student who'd made the mistake of showing mercy. Leah stood in front of her closet at 8 a.m., staring at 3 hangers. Interview outfit from 2 years ago, blazer with a coffee stain on the sleeve, black slacks that were slightly too short, white blouse with a button missing. This was it. This was all she had to wear to fight for her future. Her hands shook as she buttoned the blouse, using a safety pin where the button should have been. Her phone buzzed. I'll be nearby. You won't see me, but I'll be there.
V.
She told him not to come, told him she needed to do this alone. Of course, he hadn't listened. Stay hidden, she typed back. I mean it. No response. The hearing room was smaller than she expected. Conference table, 5 chairs on one side, 1 on the other. Windows overlooking the quad where students walked to class, carrying backpacks and coffee, living futures that still belonged to them. Dean Linda Vaughn sat center, flanked by Professor Chin from biology and Professor Morrison from pharmacology. At the far end, a thin man in an expensive suit, university lawyer, probably, arranged papers with meticulous precision. An empty chair sat across from them, waiting for her. Leia took a breath and entered. Miss Harris. Linda's voice could have frozen water. Sit. Leia sat, back straight, hands folded in her lap to hide the shaking. This hearing will determine whether you remain enrolled at this institution. Linda adjusted her glasses. You missed a critical examination without approved documentation. You failed to provide any verifiable evidence for your claimed emergency. And your scholarship status is under review for violation of attendance requirements. I understand. Do you? Professor Chin leaned forward. Because from where I'm sitting, you made a choice. You chose to play the hero instead of honoring your commitment to this program. I chose to save a woman's life. A woman whose name you don't know, whose injury you can't verify, whose very existence you can't prove. The lawyer spoke without looking up from his papers. Convenient. Leia's jaw tightened. Her name is Margaret Ward. I found her bleeding at a bus stop on Market Street. She had a head wound, probable concussion, loss of consciousness. I stabilized her until paramedics arrived at approximately 7:13 p.m. And yet you have no documentation, no witness statements, no police report. Linda's smile was thin. Just your word. The EMTs saw me. They thanked me. Did they take your name? Leia hesitated. I don't think so. I ran to campus immediately after. So, we have an unverifiable story about an unconfirmed emergency use to excuse a missed examination. Linda folded her hands. Miss Harris, this university has standards. If we made exceptions for every student with a compelling excuse, those standards would be meaningless. This isn't an excuse. It's the truth, your truth, which may or may not align with reality. Professor Morrison spoke for the first time, voice heavy with disappointment. We've seen this before. Students who freeze under pressure, who sabotage themselves, then create elaborate justifications. I didn't sabotage, didn't you? Linda leaned forward. You've struggled in this program, Miss Harris. Barely passing grades. Working excessive hours. Classic signs of someone in over their head who needed a way out. That's not. The committee's recommendation is dismissal from the nursing program and revocation of scholarship funding, effective immediately. The lawyer finally looked up. Your outstanding balance of $43,847 will be referred to collections within 30 days. The words hit like bullets. You can't do this. Leia's voice cracked. I saved her life. I did everything right. You abandoned your responsibilities. Linda stood. This hearing is concluded. The doors burst open. Margaret Ward swept into the room like a queen entering court. She wore an elegant navy suit, her silver hair perfectly styled, the injury on her temple barely visible beneath makeup. Behind her, 2 men in dark suits, bodyguards, Leia realized, though they looked human enough, flanked her with quiet menace. Linda went pale. Mrs. Ward, this is a close. This is a farce. Margaret's voice cut like glass. And I'm here to correct it. She moved to stand beside Leia, placing a warm hand on her shoulder. This young woman saved my life on October 16th at approximately 6:55 p.m. on Market Street. I had collapsed from a head injury, specifically a cranial laceration requiring 17 stitches. I was bleeding heavily, losing consciousness, dying. Margaret placed a folder on the table. EMT reports, hospital records, witness statements from the paramedics who transported me, all confirming that Leia Harris provided life-saving intervention. She smiled, sharp. Quite verifiable, wouldn't you say? Linda opened the folder with trembling hands. Her face went from pale to ashen. These records. Professor Chen looked up confused. Dean Vaughn, did you review these? Linda's jaw worked soundlessly. You received these documents 3 days ago. Margaret's voice was silk over steel. The EMTs filed their report. The hospital contacted the university directly as a courtesy to verify Miss Harris's story. And you, she looked at Linda with open contempt, chose to ignore them. That's not, I didn't. Didn't what? Didn't think a scholarship student's word mattered? Didn't believe someone without money or connections could be telling the truth? Margaret leaned forward. Or perhaps you simply preferred the easy cruelty of ruining a young woman's life over admitting you were wrong. The lawyer cleared his throat. Mrs. Ward, while we appreciate your testimony, the university's policies. Your policies favor wealthy students who can afford to miss exams with a doctor's note from a family physician. Margaret's eyes were flint. I've reviewed 12 cases this semester alone where students missed finals for far less compelling reasons and faced no consequences. The difference? Their parents write checks with many zeros. Silence. Professor Morrison shifted uncomfortably. Dean Vaughn, is this true? Linda's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Miss Harris not only deserves reinstatement, she deserves an apology. Margaret squeezed Leia's shoulder gently. And if this committee cannot provide both, I'll be having a very different conversation with the Board of Trustees, several of whom are personal friends. The threat hung in the air like smoke. The lawyer was the first to crack. Perhaps we were hasty in our initial assessment. If the documentation supports Miss Harris's account, then clearly, she should be allowed to retake the examination with her scholarship fully restored. Margaret's smile didn't reach her eyes. Immediately, Professor Chen nodded quickly. I'll arrange a makeup exam for next week. Monday, Margaret corrected. This has gone on long enough. Monday, Chen agreed. Linda sat frozen, staring at the documents that proved she'd buried evidence, that proved she'd been willing to destroy a student's future out of prejudice or laziness or simple cruelty. This hearing is concluded, the lawyer said quietly. Miss Harris, your scholarship is reinstated. You'll receive formal notification by the end of day. Outside, in the empty hallway, Leia finally let herself breathe. Margaret touched her arm gently. Are you all right? I don't know. Leia's legs felt weak. Thank you. For coming. For all of it. I told you we pay our debts. Margaret smiled warmly. Besides, someone needed to remind them that rules without compassion are just cruelty dressed up as policy. One of the bodyguards murmured something. Margaret nodded. I need to go. But you, she squeezed Leia's hand. You did beautifully. Never doubt that. She swept away, bodyguards flanking her, leaving Leia alone in the hall. Not quite alone. Valdrin stepped from an alcove she could have sworn was empty a moment ago. You won. Margaret won.
No.
He moved closer. You won when you refused to let me fix it. When you chose integrity over expediency. Something in his expression softened. That took courage. It took stupidity. If Margaret hadn't come, she came because you saved her. Because you earned her loyalty. His red eyes held hers. You're learning how power actually works, Leia. Real power isn't compulsion. It's making people want to help you because of who you are. The moment stretched between them, charged with something Leia couldn't name. I should go, she said quietly. Study for Monday. I'll walk you. You don't have to. I want to. They left through the side exit, emerging into afternoon sunlight that made Valdrin pull his collar higher against his pale skin. 3 blocks away, in the shadows of a parking garage, Elder Corvin watched them through binoculars. He saw the way Valdrin stood too close. The way his hand hovered near her back, protective without touching. The way he looked at her when she wasn't watching, like she was something precious. Something fragile. Something that could be broken. Corvin smiled slowly and lowered the binoculars. The king has a weakness, he murmured to the vampire beside him. Finally, after 3 centuries, Valdrin Arthelion has something to lose. Do we take her? Not yet. Corvin's smile widened. First, we let him get attached. Let him believe he can protect her. Let him fall in love with the idea of keeping her safe. He turned away. Then we rip her away. And we make sure he watches. For 3 days, Leia's life felt almost normal. She studied pharmacology until her eyes burned, memorized drug interactions and dosage calculations, met Valdrin on rooftops after midnight to practice pulling visions without drowning in them, touched objects he brought, a knife, a photograph, a century-old coin, and learned to see just enough of the future without being consumed by it. Better, he said on the 3rd night as she handled his pocket watch without collapsing. You're getting stronger. Or the visions are getting weaker. They're not. His expression was serious. You're learning control. That's rare. Most fate-sided burn out within weeks. What happens when they burn out? Their minds break. They see every possible future simultaneously until they can't distinguish reality from vision. He took the watch back gently. You won't let that happen. How do you know? Because you're too stubborn to break. He almost smiled. I'm beginning to understand why Margaret likes you. The invitation arrived the next morning. Embossed on cream cardstock, Margaret Ward requests the pleasure of your company at the annual Ward Foundation Gala. Saturday, 8 p.m. Black tie. Leia stared at it. I don't own anything black tie. Margaret had anticipated that. A dress arrived 2 hours later, midnight blue silk that probably cost more than Leia's rent. A note tucked inside. Wear this. You've earned a night of feeling beautiful.
M.
The gala was held at the Bellevue Hotel, in a ballroom that dripped with old money and older secrets. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over women in designer gowns and men in tuxedos. A string quartet played Vivaldi. Champagne flowed like water. Leia felt profoundly out of place until Margaret found her, resplendent in emerald silk. You came. Margaret linked arms with her. And you look stunning. Come, let me introduce you. For an hour, Leia was swept into conversations with donors and philanthropists, CEOs and socialites. Everyone was wealthy. Everyone was powerful. And as the night wore on, Leia began to sense something else. The cold spots in a room. The guests whose reflections in mirrors seemed slightly delayed. The servers whose eyes occasionally flashed red when they thought no one was watching. Vampires. Dozens of them, moving through the crowd in expensive suits and elegant gowns, playing at being human. And there, near the far wall, watching her with burning red eyes, Valdrin, dressed in a black tuxedo that made him look like he'd stepped from another century. He inclined his head slightly. A warning or a greeting, she couldn't tell. This is a neutral ground, Margaret murmured, noticing Leia's awareness. Humans and vampires conduct business here. Make alliances, sometimes even friendships. She squeezed Leia's arm. You're seeing both worlds tonight. Not many humans get that privilege. Then everything went wrong. The mirror. It shattered without warning, a massive gilt-framed piece on the east wall exploding into thousands of glittering shards. Guests screamed, backing away. Then someone shouted, gas. I smell gas. Panic erupted. People rushed for the exits, pushing, shoving. The lights flickered. In the chaos, Leia lost sight of Margaret, of Valdrin, of everything except the crush of bodies and the acrid smell filling the air. A server, young, pale, eyes too bright, moved through the crowd with impossible speed. Leia caught a flash of something in his hand, a blade, dark metal etched with silver runes that seemed to drink light. He was heading for Valdrin. No! Leia tried to push through the crowd, but there were too many people, too much chaos. The servant struck. The blade slid between Valdrin's ribs with surgical precision. He gasped, staggered, hand flying to the wound. The servant vanished into the panicking crowd. And Leia saw Valdrin on his knees in darkness. Moon hanging blood-red overhead. His skin cracked like porcelain, turning to ash from the inside out. Purple fire flickering around his hands, weakening, dying. His eyes finding hers across an impossible distance. I'm sorry. And then nothing. Just ash scattering on the wind. She crashed back into her body, ears ringing. Valdrin collapsed. 2 vampires in tuxedos caught him, faces terrified. My lord. Moon iron. Valdrin gasped. His skin was already turning gray at the edges. Get everyone out. Now. Then Leia saw him. Elder Corvin stepped from behind a pillar as if he'd been waiting for his cue. Silver hair, cold blue eyes, smile sharp enough to cut. A king who loves is a king who falls. He looked directly at Leia, ignoring the chaos around them. You have a choice now, fate-sided girl. Save the humans fleeing this building. He gestured toward the exits where people trampled each other in panic. Or save the vampire who's been using you for your power. His smile widened. Choose who dies. You did this. Leia started toward him, fury overwhelming fear.
He was gone.
Simply vanished. Valdrin's guards were lifting him. We need to move. The poison spreads fast. Take me with you, Leia demanded.
No.
Valdrin's voice was weak, fading. Too dangerous. Corvin wants. He coughed, and silver blood flecked his lips. Wants you alive. Stay with Margaret. She'll protect. I'm not leaving you. Leia grabbed his hand. His skin was ice cold. Tell them to take me with you, or I'll follow anyway. Even dying, he almost smiled. Stubborn. You said that already. Get her out, he told his guards. Both of you.
Keep her safe.
That's an order. Then his eyes rolled back, and he went limp. They carried him through service corridors Leia didn't know existed, down stairs that descended far below the hotel's foundation. Margaret appeared from nowhere, taking Leia's arm. He's been poisoned, one of the guards said. Moon iron. We need. I know what we need. Margaret's voice was steel. Get him to the safe house. I'll bring the girl. Margaret, he's dying. I know. Margaret gripped Leia's shoulders, forcing eye contact. Listen carefully. Moon iron poison has one cure. There's a ritual hidden in the catacombs beneath Pennsylvania Hospital, the oldest hospital in the city. But the path changes.
Shifts.
Only someone who can see fate's threads can navigate it. Then we go now. It's not that simple. The catacombs are trapped, warded, designed to kill anyone who takes a wrong turn. Margaret's eyes were urgent. You'll need to see the correct path. Use your gift. And Leia, she hesitated. Corvin will be waiting. He knew this would happen. He's counting on you trying to save Valdrin. I don't care. You should. He'll try to take you. Use you. Kill you if necessary. Leia thought of Valdrin's hand going cold in hers, of his eyes closing, of the vision of him turning to ash under a blood-red moon. Then he'll have to catch me first. She pulled away from Margaret. Where's the hospital? Margaret stared at her for a long moment. Then she smiled, sad and proud. Come on. We don't have much time. Behind them, in the ballroom slowly emptying of panicked guests, Elder Corvin watched security footage on his phone. He saw the girl refuse to leave the king's side, saw her demand to go with him, saw her choose the vampire over her own safety. Perfect, he murmured. She loves him. She'll do anything to save him. He looked at the vampire beside him. Gather the hunters. When she enters those catacombs, we take her. Valdrin dies, and the Eastern Dominion falls. And if she succeeds in saving him? Corvin's smile was nice. She won't. No one's navigated those catacombs in 300 years. The last person who tried, he paused, was the last fate-sided. And she died screaming. The catacombs beneath Pennsylvania Hospital smelled like earth and old death. Margaret led them down stone steps worn smooth by centuries, flashlight beams cutting through darkness that felt alive. Two of Valdrin's guards flanked Leia, Marcus, broad-shouldered and grim, and Elena, who moved like a dancer and watched shadows like they might attack. The entrance seals behind us, Margaret warned. Once we're in, the only way out is through. Or not at all, Elena murmured. Encouraging, Leia muttered. The walls were carved limestone, weeping moisture. Names and dates scratched into stone, 1751, 1780, 1823. The foundation of the city, built on bones and secrets. Then Leia saw them.
Threads.
Gossamer lines of light, invisible to the others, stretching through the air like a spider's web. Some glowed gold, others pulsed red. A few flickered between colors, unstable, dangerous. I see them, she whispered. The paths. Then lead. Margaret's hand was steady on her shoulder. We trust you. Leia followed a golden thread down a corridor that branched 3 ways. The left path glowed red. She touched it lightly with her awareness and saw Marcus's death, impaled on hidden spikes. The right showed Elena burning in magical fire. Only the center path held steady gold. This way. They walked deeper. Time felt wrong here, stretched and compressed simultaneously. Minutes or hours, Leia couldn't tell. She navigated by instinct and vision, following threads that twisted through impossible geometry. Then she touched a wall by accident and saw her own death, throat torn out by something with too many teeth. She jerked back, gasping. Leia? Margaret's voice was distant. I'm okay. Just don't touch the walls. The chamber opened before them without warning, vast, circular, lit by phosphorescent fungi that cast everything in sickly green. And there, chained to a pillar with dark metal that smoked against his skin, Valdrin. He hung limp, head down, skin gray as ash. Moon iron chains wrapped his wrists and throat. His magic bled from him in purple wisps that dissipated into nothing. Valdrin. Leia started forward. Stop. The command was silk over razors. Elder Corvin stepped from the shadows, smiling. One more step, and I open his throat. He'll be ash before you can scream. Marcus and Elena moved to flank Leia, but Corvin gestured casually. 24 vampires emerged from alcoves around the chamber, eyes glowing red in the darkness. Outnumbered, Corvin observed. Outmaneuvered. And the king is dying. He moved to Valdrin, grabbed his hair, lifted his head. Valdrin's eyes were barely open, unfocused. Such a waste. 3 centuries of rule, ended by sentimentality. Let him go. Leia's voice shook but held. Oh, I will. After you help me. Corvin released Valdrin's head, approached Leia like a predator savoring the hunt. You can see futures, yes? Threads of fate? Show me the paths where I rule the Eastern Dominion. Show me how to consolidate power. Do this, and I'll remove the chains. Valdrin lives as my puppet, but he lives. Leia looked at the threads surrounding Corvin. They pulsed red and black, sick with violence. And if I refuse, then you watch him die. Slowly, painfully. And when he's ash, I take you anyway. Corvin's smile widened. Either way, you're mine. I'm just giving you the illusion of choice. Kindness, really. Leia closed her eyes, reaching for the threads with her awareness. She saw it, the future where she obeyed. Corvin ruled with her chained at his side, forced to navigate his path to power. Blood in the streets, war between dominions. Thousands dead. And Valdrin, broken and controlled, eyes empty of everything that made him who he was. She saw the future where she refused. Valdrin died in front of her. Then her own death, quick at least. Corvin won, anyway. Every path ended in darkness. Except there. So faint she almost missed it. A golden thread so thin it was nearly invisible, branching from a choice she hadn't considered. A path that required perfect timing, perfect trust. Let go of fear. Leia opened her eyes. I'll show you. Wise girl. Corvin stepped closer. The path you want is right there. Leia pointed to a spot 3 feet to Corvin's left. Step there. You'll see it. Corvin's eyes narrowed. You think I'm stupid? I think you want power more than you want to be careful. Leia met his gaze. Look at the threads yourself. What do you see? He looked, and his expression changed. Hunger, greed, triumph. He could see something there, some future he wanted desperately. He took the step. The ceiling fractured. A moon iron spike, part of the ancient trap system, fell like a spear thrown by God. It punched through Corvin's chest and pinned him to the stone floor. He screamed, clawing at the metal, blue eyes wide with shock. You. Blood bubbled from his lips. Impossible. You said I could see fate. Leia's voice was cold. I saw yours. Corvin's vampires rushed forward. Marcus and Elena met them with brutal efficiency. The chamber erupted in violence, fangs and claws and magic crackling through stale air. Leia ran to Valdrin. The moon iron chains burned her hands when she touched them, but she held on, seeing the threads around him. With Corvin dying, the curse weakened. She could see it, the exact sequence needed to break the binding. She pulled the chain at his throat first, then his left wrist, right wrist. The metal fell away, clattering on stone. Valdrin collapsed into her arms. Leia, I've got you. She lowered him to the ground, hands shaking. Tell me how to finish the ritual. Tell me how to save you. Can't, too weak. She grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. I didn't come this far to lose you now. Tell me. His eyes focused barely. My blood. Your blood. Mixed on the ground where the chains fell. Speak my name. My true name. He gasped, magic flickering weakly around his fingers. Valdrin Kale Arthelion, born 1647, Lord of the Eastern Dominion.
Say it.
Bind us. Leia pulled a piece of fallen moon iron, slashed her palm, then his. Pressed their hands together, blood mingling, dripping onto stone. Valdrin Kale Arthelion, born 1647, Lord of the Eastern Dominion. Her voice rang through the chamber. I bind your life to fate's mercy. I bind your magic to this moment. I bind you to the world. Live. The threads exploded with golden light. Power surged through her, through both of them, so intense she thought she'd burn. Valdrin arched back, gasping, purple fire erupting around him. His skin shifted from ash gray to pale marble. His eyes blazed red, bright and fierce. The chamber began to collapse. The stone cracked. The ceiling shuddered. Corvin's body turned to ash, and with it, the ancient wards broke. Valdrin grabbed Leia, pulled her tight against him. Hold on. They moved. The world became a blur of darkness and speed. The wind screamed past. Stones exploded behind them. And then, fresh air. Night sky. They were outside blocks away, standing on a rooftop while the ground shook with the catacombs' collapse. Leia's legs gave out. Valdrin caught her, lowered them both to the roof. You saved me, he whispered, voice rough with wonder. You killed an elder and saved me.
Yeah.
Leia started laughing, hysterical, exhausted, alive. I did. I really did. He pulled her closer, and for the first time since she'd met him, Valdrin Arthelion smiled. Really smiled. Remind me never to underestimate you again. 3 weeks later, Leia walked out of her makeup exam knowing she'd passed. Not just passed, excelled. The pharmacology questions she'd agonized over for weeks suddenly made perfect sense. Her hands hadn't shaken once. She'd answered every question with the confidence of someone who'd faced down death and won. Professor Chen caught her in the hallway. Miss Harris. Excellent work. Thank you. The university is reviewing some of our policies, making them more equitable. Chen's expression was carefully neutral. I believe Mrs. Ward had some input on that. Leia smiled. She's very persuasive. Indeed. Chen paused. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're still here. The words were small, but they mattered. Her apartment was still tiny, still shabby, but it felt different now. Less like a cage, and more like a choice. Margaret had offered to pay for somewhere better. Leia had refused, but accepted help with the overdue rent. Baby steps toward letting people care about her. Her phone buzzed. Rooftop. Midnight. We need to talk.
V.
She smiled despite herself. 3 weeks of nightly training sessions, of learning to control the visions, of dancing around conversations that neither of them was ready to finish. Tonight felt different. Valdrin stood at the roof's edge, silhouetted against the city lights. He wore his usual dark coat, but something in his posture was less guarded, more human. You passed your exam, he said without turning. News travels fast in the vampire world. Margaret texted me. He glanced back, almost smiling, with 7 exclamation points. That sounds like her. He turned fully to face her. I need to thank you.
Properly.
In the old way. The old way. Valdrin knelt. Leia's breath caught. A vampire king, ancient, powerful, terrifying, on one knee before a nursing student. You saved my life when I had no right to ask it of you. You killed my enemy when you could have fled. You rewrote fate itself to keep me in this world. His red eyes met hers, burning with intensity. I am in your debt, Leia Harris. By blood and magic and the old laws, I am yours. Get up. Her voice cracked. Please. He rose slowly. There's something else you should know.
What?
3 centuries ago, a girl with your gift saved my life. Her name was Elise. His expression turned distant, pained. I was young, arrogant. I thought I could protect her from the enemies her power attracted. I was wrong. They killed her because of me. Because I made her visible. Because I let myself care. He looked at Leia. I swore I'd never let that happen again. Never let my heart tether to a mortal. And now I'm terrified. The admission seemed to cost him. Because I've broken that oath. You're not just someone I protect, Leia. He stopped, searching for words. You're everything I thought I'd never have again. Leia's throat tightened. I'm just a girl who missed an exam. You're the woman who chose mercy over ambition. Who faced down corruption and won. Who killed an elder vampire to save someone she barely knew. He stepped closer. You're not just anything. I never thought I deserved anyone, Leia whispered. Mortal or immortal. I was the quiet girl who worked too hard and disappeared into crowds. Nobody special. Nobody her voice broke. Worth caring about. You were wrong. Maybe. She met his eyes. But something changed. When I saved Margaret. When I stood up to the board. When I chose to save you instead of running. I started to see myself differently. As someone worth caring about. As someone who gets to make her own choices. Even impossible ones. Valdrin reached into his coat, pulled out a silver chain with a pendant, a crystal that glowed faintly purple. This is a fate bond.
Not ownership.
Not slavery.
Partnership.
You remain human, finish your education, live your life. But you also serve as my fate bearer. My advisor in matters of destiny. My equal in supernatural affairs. Equal? She raised an eyebrow. You're king. And you're the woman who rewrote fate and lived. That makes you something rare. He held the pendant between them. I'm offering you both worlds, Leia. Not asking you to choose one. She stared at the crystal. At the threads of fate swirling around it, golden and bright. At the future it represented, strange, dangerous, impossible. I wasn't brave, she said quietly. I was just me. But maybe that's enough. It's more than enough. She took the pendant. The moment her fingers closed around it, light exploded between them. Golden threads weaving around their hands, binding, connecting, intertwining. Valdrin gasped softly. Leia felt it too, the click of something falling into place. A bond deeper than blood, stronger than magic. The vampire king bowed to her. Not in servitude, but in respect. In partnership. In something that felt dangerously close to love. They stood side by side at the roof's edge, watching Philadelphia sleep below. Street lamps glowed warm. Traffic hummed. The city breathed, alive and unaware that two people on a rooftop had just changed its future. Leia wore her blue scrubs. She'd come straight from a study session. Valdrin stood in his dark coat, ancient and elegant. Mortal and immortal. Human and vampire. Two worlds that shouldn't fit together. But somehow they did. What happens now? Leia asked.
Now.
Valdrin glanced at her, the faintest smile touching his lips. Now you finish nursing school. I stabilize the Dominion after Corvin's death. And we figure out what it means to rewrite destiny together. Sounds complicated. Terribly. Good. Leia smiled. I was getting bored with simple. He laughed, a real laugh, warm and surprised. And as the first light of dawn began to touch the horizon, they stood together, watching the future they'd fought for, the future they'd earned, the future they'd written in two hands, with blood and magic and a shy girl's choice to stop when everyone else kept walking. The end.